Okay, so here we go with quiz number 10. First, we're supposed to use the square root property to solve that equation. So let me put it on a fresh screen here. Okay, so how do we solve it? When you have a big old thing squared, step 1, get the squared piece alone. Step 2, root, and plus or minus root over the two sides. So I'm going to grab this guy and jump him over. So this will become x plus 4 squared is minus 54. Right, when something moves to the other side of the equation, it switches signs. And then put the root over. It's important that you go over that negative sign and the 54, and then plus or minus, right? Root and plus or minus root. Rooting cancels squaring, so we get x plus 4 plus or minus. Now, what does that negative do inside of a root? It always comes out as an I. Square root of 54. So bring that over here. How do we simplify the 54? 6 times 9, 9 is 3 times 3, 6 is 2 times 3. So that's x plus 4 is plus or minus I root of 2, 3, 3, 3. And then 2 3's in sends 1 3 out, and they're gone. So we get x plus 4 is plus or minus 3i root of, and the 2 times 3 left is 6. There we go. Last step, jump that 4 to the other side. Becomes negative 4 plus or minus 3i root 6. Those are the two answers. Okay, so here's number 2. Solve by completing the square that. So we have to do this one by completing the square. We can't use the quadratic formula. The next problem we'll use the quadratic formula. The negative b plus or minus square root of stuff. But this one we have to do completing the square. What is completing the square? Do you remember? It's step number 1. You move the number to the other side. So I'm going to grab that guy and move it over. So there's step number 1. We'll have y squared plus 3y positive 1 when that negative 1 jumps to the other side. Step 2 is number next to x. I should say middle number is what I would say. Number next to x, or in this case y, over 2 squared, add to both sides. Remember that special thing we do? So I'll take that number right here, over on the side here, over 2 squared, that's 9/4, add it to both sides, like that. And then, remember what that means, step 3, the left factors as a square, and it's going to be y plus or minus the parenthesis number. Remember, it's always the number in parentheses. So this side will factor as y plus the number in parentheses. What's the number in the parentheses? 3/2. See how it's y plus 3/2, y plus 3/2. I'm going to write squared in a minute, but I just want you to see. It's y plus 3/2, y plus 3/2. See, if you were to multiply 3/2 times 3/2, they would multiply to be 9/4, right? 3 times 3, 2 times 2. And they would add to be 3. Do you see that? What is 3? Whoops, I'm kind of being scribbly there. What is 3/2 plus, what do they add to be? 6/2, which is 3, isn't it? See, they add to be 3. See, that really is, it really does make it factor. That completing number, that special 9/4 number, makes the left side factor as the same thing twice, meaning a square. It completes the square. What happens on the other side? Well, put this over 1, multiply top and bottom by 4, and you get 4/4 plus 9/4 13/4, right? Common denominator, add them up, 13/4. Now, how do we finish solving that? Step 4, root and plus or minus. So you put the root over this side, the root over that side with the plus or minus. Rooting cancels squaring. Y plus 3/2 is plus or minus. Now the square root goes to the top, square root of 13, and the bottom, because it's over the whole fraction. But what is the square root of 4 on the bottom? It's just 2, huh? You can't square root the 13 on the top, so the root stays on the top, because you can't root 13. But on the bottom, the root of 4, that's just 2. So the root just vanishes from the bottom because he did his job on the bottom and rooted the 4 to make it 2. Last step, jump this 3/2 over, so y is minus 3/2 plus or minus root 13 over 2. There we go. We solved it by completing the square. Okay, so here's number 3. It says use the quadratic formula to solve. So we got that equation. So let's go to a fresh screen. So what do we do when we have fractions? What do we always do? We multiply by the common denominator, LCD. So you look at the 6 and the 2 denominators, and you say, what's the common denominator? What number do 2 and 6 both go into? They both go into 12, but the lowest number they both go into is 6 itself, right? They both go into 6. 2 and 6 both go into 6. You could use 12, but the least common denominator, the lowest number, the easiest number to use, is going to be 6. So I'll use 6, and what do you do with it? You multiply all 3 of them by the 6, right? Because you got to do the same thing to both sides, all the terms on the left, all the terms on the right, equal treatment. Multiply through by 6, and so what happens? This cancels. We get y squared, and this is 6y minus, now what happens here? 2 goes into 6 3 times. The leftover 3 times 3 is 9. So that's nice. Okay, now we have a y squared equation. What do we do when we have y squared with an equal sign? Step 1, get a 0. Step 2, try to factor. So I'm going to jump this over, and we'll get, to get a 0, right? I'm trying to get a 0 right now. So I'll get y squared minus, right? When things jump to the other side, you know they change signs. So it'll be minus 6y plus 9 equals 0. So now you can try to factor. That one actually factors pretty easily, huh? Multiply, add, it'd be y minus 3, y minus 3. 2 negative 3's multiplied to be plus 9, add to be minus 6. Right? If you did the diamond thing there, that's what I just did. Multiply to be plus 9, add to be minus 6, minus 3 and minus 3, add to be minus 6, multiply to be plus 9. So then each one equals 0, right? Because if two things multiply to equal 0, either one could be 0. It's the same equation twice, so I'll just solve it once. Y is 3. That's the only answer to that one. Y is 3, and that's the whole quiz.